Both of these teams were unbeaten at the time. And I actually have watched this game before as well, so I'll burn all my bridges next interview for you, Sideshow. Yes, yes, that's what I like. That's what I like.
On the map. It's starting on Gardens our first match, and what too much of a surprise to see 3-3 or British Hurricane running a bit of Monkey Goats instead.
Yeah, they have block on the Anna as well.
Looks like they're going to change up though.
On the Zen,
if you win contenders and stay undefeated, Happy, I want the spiciest interview in the world. I want you to say you are better than Peak Eagle Gaming, that Runaway can lick your boots, that the top Owl teams would get dumpstered by you 4-0, that you're the mastermind of the team and your coaches don't know shit.
Triple DPS, double support, and a singular tank with Numlocked on the wrecking ball. Going to look to try and make an entrance here.
Peak Eagle Gaming would actually just get trashed right now.
All about this triple DPS, double support, and a singular.
The game has evolved so much since they were good. Okay. Right, British Hurricane again start with something different, something weird.
Wow. He's dead, mate. He's already gone.
So they're running Doom Farah with an Ash.
This is going to be kind of irritating for Angry Titans.
So triple DPS.
Neil's going to be the only one really on the Diva defense matrix, and maybe
apply a bunch of pressure, allow Danid to maybe go in uncontested. Danid's Doomfist is actually really good.
Nice little punch into the wall. Emil's gone as well. Point for British Hurricane will be capped in a moment.
And of course,
the Titans just go Winston Goats here. Was Batiste allowed at this point? Winston Batiste Goats would be good here. Actually, I don't know. Is Batiste allowed? Batiste isn't allowed. Okay. Red Clone 978. Thank you for the 3 months in a row. 3 months of Papega and feeding. Thanks for the great streams. No problem. Anytime. Anytime. Yeah, I think British Hurricane would quite easily beat the bottom Owl teams. And probably a bunch of the mid Owl teams as well. I think the top contenders teams are within that tier 2 of the Owl teams. Like the teams that are between kind of Gladiators and Fuel. Like Gladiators, London, fuck, who else is in there? Dynasty, Fuel, Shanghai. Like I think those 5 slots is probably where the top contenders teams like Runaway, British Hurricane, Angry Titans fit in. Pow! Okay.
3 into the spam,
but I don't really know where they'd fit into that tier. It's pretty hard to tell at that point. And also they've been playing on a different patch too, so
difficulty trying to take down Hafiko unless he flies too close to the ground.
Hopefully not. I mean, you could get the hack off, of course, to stay with those
slightly more difficult to tell. Okay, so they're playing Sombra Tracer into this. That's Titan's answer.
Hafiko can one-shot him if he's not looking.
So they hack Numlocked and take him down with the Sombra Tracer. And they've got more presence on the point. So every time Angry Titans come into this, they should be able to take the point off British Hurricane. And then their Sombra needs to kind of call who they're going on to.
Claim the kill,
whether it's the ball or whether it's the
Emil just trying to decide how he wants to go down, not to bomb to the rest of British Hurricane, he decides, and Hafiko has still got that barrage in his back pocket as they try and find the recap, but there's slow.
And then they've also got EMP at some point as well.
Back onto the point to buy them some more time.
Spectral's return, used his recall. Urki's going to get Hafiko. That's a great start for AT.
Big coalescence as well. Student's going to be in a little bit of trouble here. Urki's going to be able to harass people so much.
So EMP gets used onto Danid and Yofi. Danid's focused down, which is nice.
Jofi's still able to hover up in the air as he was ulting at the time.
A lot more point pressure from Angry Titans. This is the point at which British Hurricane could switch back over to the other comp.
Just going to claim Lulsish, but nothing else.
But they're full on committed to it. Okay.
But no one was there to try and do the damage, Jaws.
Yeah, Numlock's actually jumped over to the Winston.
That's nice. Nice damage boosted rocket straight into Spectral.
Barrier comes through from AT, only hitting 3 members, but it might be enough. Fow's going to get quickly chased out. Fat falling and Emil going extremely low should hopefully be the fight win for British Hurricane, but all this time they let the point go so late, so early, sorry.
So I think the strat at the beginning worked well for British Hurricane, but Angry Titans have played this fairly well. You have your biggest advantage when you're playing against kind of triple DPS compositions like what British Hurricane were running is that they have absolutely no point pressure. It's impossible for them to pressure the point or take space. So if you are the team that's running the D.Va Winston with, you know, whatever DPS you happen to be running at the time, your job is to ensure that you take space away from this team. So you take space away by occupying the point and capturing it, and then moving into locations that Tsuna would like to snipe from, moving into locations that Hafikul would like to be occupying, pushing Numlocked around the map because he has to avoid you every time. He can't just directly take those fights. You know, pushing your Sombra into locations and making sure that British Hurricane have to avoid them. And then eventually you're going to back them into a corner and be able to beat them, and the clock is going to be ticking up the whole time. So even though, if I had to guess at this point, I'd say British Hurricane probably have at least twice the kills, maybe 3 times the kills that Angry Titans have. But because of how both of the compositions work, Angry Titans are at 80% right now. But I don't think they should be playing, because British Hurricane have gone to not really a 2-2-2 setup, but they've switched off the triple DPS and they're now playing with the Brig. I think now you can just play Winston Goats. You don't have to play. If you play Winston Goats here into British Hurricane and you again occupy the point and force Hafikul and Tsuna to come towards you, those are 2 heroes that are just like pounding in a load of damage, but they're not very good at being able to really finish off kills. And Lulsish and Emil should just be able to occupy the point, occupy that zone, and use their defense matrix and their bubble to be able to block what Hurricane are doing. But by playing the Widow and stuff, you're slowing down and you're giving up your ability to occupy space. Now you are the one that can't really take space because Spectral has to play sightlines. So I don't like this decision to move over to the Widowmaker here. Even though, like, in theory, both Tsuna and Hafikul are weak to the Widowmaker, you're playing into British Hurricane's style. Whereas you could just go full Winston Goats, occupy the point, force British Hurricane into you, and then either burst down Numlocked, who doesn't really have the D.Va to be able to, or he doesn't have bubbles or defense matrix to keep him alive. So Seb has to be super careful if he wants to keep contesting the point. There's nobody to like ping pong off the point with, like the Koreans would say. And both of these heroes aren't really very good at being able to contest the point either. So you should be playing point pressure here as the Angry Titans. But they're playing into British Hurricane's hands with this comp swap, I think.
Hafikul up in the air needs to be very careful about what kind of spaces he puts himself into. He's going to need some of that horizontal cover to ensure that he can avoid incoming coalescence beams. And Spectral's going to move over to McCree now. Wants to lay down the law.
I have actually already done an Eagle Gaming VOD video. It's on my Twitch.
Will not stand for long, but
TLDR is that they are mad overrated, or were at the time. Obviously, people are just saying it as a meme now.
Victim of that at these longer ranges.
Hafikul's got barrage. Numlock's also.
Oh, so Spectral went over to the McCree. I wasn't even watching. Okay, so now they're playing McCree Brig, which I think makes much more sense into this comp because it does allow you to just play the point, and you can still apply pressure to Tsuna and Hafikul. So I like this comp switch much more than the Sombra Widow, which they were playing before I started reading the chat.
The ultimate as well. Bob's going to get unleashed. He puts himself on the point.
But they're not really, they're not playing the point. They're just pushing out. Having said that, they did kill Bok when he was at 92%.
Him end up going down might be a big boon.
But now, I mean, what is Spectral doing out here? They should be playing the point. Their biggest advantage over British Hurricane is that they can play the point. And instead, they go out into them. They push out, and then McCree ends up over here. Whereas the McCree should just be playing from inside here and killing the people that come to contest. Maybe they felt they had to play aggressive because Bucket was about to get his trance. I don't know. I think your composition is just better.
Also lands and actually kills off sooner. There is an ulting Mercy in the skies, but this is good for British Hurricane. They're still building up time, and Hafikul is still alive. Use the barrages on.
Happy's doing a lot of damage. They're doing a good job of being able to contest. Numlocked has to be careful, but they have a lot of resources to be able to give him.
He's not going down anytime
Transcendence is used, so now they can play aggressive. They want to try and isolate a target. Lulsish is pretty far in. They should be able to kill Lulsish here. He gets bashed, discorded, but they can't quite kill him. The barrage is a decent attempt, but Titans are going to be able to flip this in the end. Closer than it needed to be. I think Titans had the what do you call it? Comp advantage that they should have been able to take this. Hurricane, I think, should now just go either Rhino or Winston Goats. Winston Goats probably because Numlocked is so close to his primal, and then just
isn't going to have a good time cleaving through.
If Titans had taken the point earlier when they were at 78% and the other team was at 70%, then this would be a totally different situation. If they had actually capped the point early, then that fight that we just saw would have been the deciding fight for this stage. But instead, because they didn't prioritize capture point, they won the fight, but it was Hurricane that were ticking up the entire time. So now this fight, where Hurricane have the comp advantage, is the one that decides it. So Titans should have had a better comp in the deciding fight, and now have a worse comp in the deciding fight because they didn't play the point.
That a Tracer can offer to you. They're going to move on to a point. Overtime's going to trigger, and we're in our final fight.
They just want to muscle them out. They just want to be able to put themselves on the point and not go down to Spectral's guns. A beat's going to come through from AT as they do surge forward. Already a DMX
decently timed beat from Angry Titans.
Numlock's fighting in the front line. He's got ultimate, but he ends up going down.
Seb got bashed.
Stunned, and Urki finished off the kill. Now
So Titans should still win.
British Hurricane is Happy Cool, loses his mech as well. Urki's on a rampage as he finds two and
Let's go back and take a look at this from from British Hurricane's point of view. They know that Titans have the sound barrier, but they want to force it out, kite it, and then come back in with the primal. That's their idea. They want to try and force it out with this rally. The bubble's a bit early onto Numlocked, to be fair, but it does allow him to get the primal. Daned gets flashbanged, I think. Numlocked, yeah. I mean, I think Numlocked could have just afforded to use his primal a little earlier there.
Fighting in the front line. He's got ultimate, but he ends up going down. He actually got stunned, and Urki finished off the kill. Now no front line for British Hurricane is Happy.
Especially when that is the win condition for the fight.
Urki's on a rampage as he finds two, and Spectral opening up the Deadeye. Gets punished by Sooner, but it might be all too little too late. Urki found himself another kill. And Mock's going to be able to get back to the point in time, but there's too many members of AT contesting.
Beautiful target focus there from Angry Titans.
I hard inted that fight, to be honest.
Guns.
Let's take a look at Happy Cool hard intake.
Can offer to you. They're going to move on to a point. Overtime's going to trigger, and we're in our final fight.
They just want to muscle them out. They just want to be able to put themselves on the point and not go down to Spectral's guns.
I think presumably Happy's got a forward position because he thought people would be looking at Seb.
A beat's going to come through from AT as they do surge forward. Already a DMech has happened on Happy Cool, and Numlock's fighting in the front line. He's got ultimate, but he ends up going
Seb
down.
doesn't have the defense matrix for him.
Hurricane mitigate with a D.Va defense matrix, especially if you're telegraphed, using multiple blinks to go in towards a target, then recall away.
Everything is content.
That also means you can't be as aggressive after you use a pulse on because you've used so many of your resources. As well, last year you got a Discord or bot.
He damaged as well.
Yeah, and he can also kill you in a single headshot because that 150 HP pool does not last you at all when you are up against damage boost and Discord.
All right, Ryan Goats.
Okay, back to same old now. No more DPS on the field just yet, unless you count, of course, the Zenyattes. Avox has just been showing
strange positioning from Numlocked, actually.
Initial picks from him have just been so good. And just
over towards the left-hand side.
Same old now. No more DPS on the field just yet, unless you count, of course, the Zenyattes. Avox has just been showing up these past weeks. No more DPS on the field just yet, unless you count, of course, the Zenyattes. Avox has just been showing up these past weeks. These initial picks from him have just been so good these past weeks.
This is really interesting, actually. They've, instead of trying to take the, instead of setting up in opposition, opposite the enemy Rhine, they've spread out to take this kind of position, British Hurricane. And discorded Lulsish, spread Numlocked out here. So if they want to push, if Angry Titans want to push through this way, Numlock's just going to spear them. if they want to try and contest Seb, they open their flank up to these guys. Haffy and Daned are positioned over on a slight off angle here. So although this looks strange, I think this is actually quite nice position from British Hurricane.
These initial picks from him have just been so good, and just winning the team fights off the back of him more often than not. Daned's going to find the first kill on Urki.
And Titans don't adjust to it, they just play close to the wall. But close to the wall's the worst place that you can play against that kind of positioning, I think.
Great positioning play there from British Hurricane, ensuring that they could try and split off Spectral and take him on as sort of like a rushing core of 3 on a lone Zarya. Obviously, you see that personal barrier come out early, try and build up those shields, and after that, the Zarya can become a priority target. Angry Titans are going to try and rotate now through high ground. This means that British Hurricane cannot force an engagement onto them because they have no way of getting up there as a unit. Only Hathikul can really go up there and chase out by himself.
Look how aggressive Numlock's playing, and he can.
They've managed to build their ults up so much faster than Giganti.
Not falling to the floor just yet. Numlock does get.
Only Hathikul can really go up there.
So they don't drop. This isn't a situation where the team on top drops on top of people and like are directly on top of these guys. It's more a situation where British Hurricane get aggressive into them as soon as they drop. So the bubble is popped super quickly. They throw out the grav. Hafikul again has an off angle, which I really like. It's weird, like almost every other team will play around their Rhine or their Zarya, but it feels to me like British Hurricane play around their Diva, which is a super weird thing to say, but they put Haffy in a bunch of off angles, and if people try and go on Haffy, he's like the bait that everyone else is going to rush at as well. So they put their Diva in more in better positions, but more dangerous positions. But they're just ready always to capitalize if anybody does actually try and kill Happy.
But it doesn't really matter too much. Logsis does end up falling. Does mean Angry Titans
Which I like.
are going to have to go again once more. All this time, British Hurricane were building up ults. They've got the self-destruct.
Yeah, for sure. I think both of these teams will be able to compete with the Korean teams in the gauntlet. It's hard to tell whether they're better or worse, but
he's not been able to do much in these fights. He's often having to try and protect Lolsish, or he gets singled out early and destroyed. That means that sooner he's building up his gravitons so much more quickly.
I think Hurricane look weaker when they play these weird strats, the DPS favored strats. I think they look at their best for sure when they're playing the goats.
The rally's going to come out, and a grab also comes through. Straight onto Urki's shield. He ends up
attack here.
So here, Lolsish gets melted right at the beginning.
Early and destroyed. That means
whoa,
sooner
bit raked.
He's building up his gravitons so much more quickly. Or this singular graviton.
Take a look at how the abilities get used here. Lolsish drops down. Immediately discorded as soon as he's because you can't just plop onto the floor, you have to drop your shield when you jump down, and as he drops his shield, Bockard's immediately discorded him, and then they do a shit ton of damage to him as he keeps hopping forwards to try and take this space, and so we get to a situation where both of the bubbles are being traded, both of the discords are being cleansed, but Lolsish already has a third of the health that Numlock does. Because the Discord orb is immediately on him, and they're focusing him super fast. And he just gets obliterated as well, because Haffy's doing a ton of damage to him from this off angle behind his shield.
So aggressive, Hafikul kills him.
So I think going from the and then
so much more quickly, or this singular graviton at this point.
And then they just throw the grav in there, which I don't think is necessary.
Lolsish went so aggressive, Hafikul kills him off yet again.
They grab Urki, but it's just so unnecessary.
Straight onto Urki's shield, he ends up falling. Maybe not the best use of the grab, but it's still got the work done.
Yeah, I'm gonna call that a poor choice there from Suna. It feels like with Lolsish down, Angry Titans didn't really.
Maybe Suna thought they would commit more resources to saving Urki or something, like maybe transit, but they didn't need to use that grab. You've already won the fight as soon as the main tank goes down. It would be a different thing if British Hurricane, if Titans had got compensation from the grav kill, but they haven't at all.
A little bit of price to try out 180 fakey there.
Defensive and offensive self-destruct are being used.
And a beat and a transcendence, one from each side.
So the trance gets used from British Hurricane to negate the grav, but the barrier from Fat gets used to block the defensive self-destruct. So the defensive self-destruct goes up from Hafikul, and because he's timed it nicely for when they're being grabbed and they're trying to follow up on it, They're worried they're going to die to this bomb that's in the air. So Fat uses his sound barrier. They didn't need the sound barrier. It wasn't going to catch any of them. But that's... I think that's either the second or third time that we've seen an opponent of British Hurricane waste their sound barrier because of Hafikul's bombs. Because they're scared of Hafi's bombs, and they're not confident in being able to back off and re-engage, so they just throw a sound barrier in there out of either fear or just to allow them to go aggressive.
Transcendence, one from each side.
But it's not like you can ever really rely on a sound barrier to counter the bomb. It's just... it's kind of... It's unreliable, but it's... What's the best way of phrasing this? It's... if the bomb is well placed and you just ignore the bomb, then the sound barrier isn't going to save you. But the sound barrier is going to save you if you accidentally get caught out a little bit by the bomb. But it's not a good idea to sound barrier a bomb unless you... if you're caught in a grav or something, or like in this fight. In this fight, if there was a couple of players that really were caught out, like for example, if Fat and AFOX were just totally caught out, they're like in the middle, the bomb comes down, there's no way that they can escape. If they use sound barrier here to make sure that those two players don't die, and it just strips the sound barrier away and they're able to still take the fight, fair enough. But you don't really want to use the sound barrier to negate a bomb unless you know that you're fucked unless you do it.
Fatspeed's going to run out mile at the moment.
Happy says, I'd be scared of my bombs. Yeah. Yeah, it's like unreliable but safe. But it's also a waste of a...
As AFOX still has his Transcendence online.
Yeah, unreliable but safe is the best way of putting it,
just
though.
Just a key target for British Hurricane to take down first, because they know Angry Titans cannot fight and run out mile momentarily.
This fight, here comes the defensive self-destruct. So they've used Grav, they've used Bomb, and they've used Sound Barrier for the Angry Titans. British Hurricane have tranced it, and they've used a defensive self-destruct, which are both very valid ways of being able to fight this. Numlock takes Bubble, goes backwards. Numlock doesn't have Bubble at the moment, and he's only just got Armor Pack as well. Haffy comes back after playing the off angle, so he's now back with the rest of his team, eating up a bit of this spam, and they're trying to go aggressive onto Emil. Emil takes Barrier. Wait, how the fuck does Losish die?
In the air regardless, and a beat and a Transcendence, one from each side. Fatspeed's going to run out mile.
Does he just get too aggro on Numlock?
His Transcendence online.
I'm actually not sure about how Losish dies there. Losish goes from being really healthy to not healthy at all. He must have taken a huge right click from Sooner or something. I think he does. Yeah. Transcendence online, not quite enough to save Losish yet again. He got blasted. Losish got absolutely fucking melted.
AFOX still has his Transcendence online, not quite enough to save Losish yet again, who's been just a key target.
The focus fire is really good from British Hurricane though in general.
Angry Titans cannot fight without him. They're on 95%. 18 have to touch. AFOX now forced to use the trans to even...
They can try and get value out of this shatter based on people coming to the point as well.
Fat just gets taken out through the window, didn't even touch. British Hurricane clean 100-0 on Night Market.
Beautiful. He got an Earth Shadow there, but didn't really get to use
clean,
it
clean,
overtime.
clean,
so
clean,
he's
clean.
Not having a good time at all, and that would explain why Spectral wasn't able to build up Grav so much, because he was playing.
Yeah, Bomb can kill through trans. Yeah.
He knew that he had to try and take care of Losish. He couldn't allow himself to become.
Yeah. Turn the VOD down. It's so loud. I'll turn it down a bit, but nobody else was complaining, so I don't think it's that loud.
Target like he was in that first fight. They isolated him so well, so we can't go for that again. But for a second, Spectral sort of like playing in line. He's
I think Gauntlet is a fantastic idea. I'd love to have one twice a year. Imagine if we had a Gauntlet in the break between stage 2 and stage 3, and then we had a Gauntlet in the off season as well. That'd be amazing. But frankly, I'm just happy that we have the Gauntlet at all.
He's thinking, I want to use it aggressively, so
that's what I thought would be the case last year in OWL. But then just nothing happened in the offseason. It was very disappointing.
It's a bit of an issue.
Well, speaking of needing more, both of our teams need one more stage to claim Lijiang Tower. Once again, Losish trying to get bullied.
There we go.
All right.
Kind of need more, but Losish falling
so both Ryans trade a little bit of damage. Spectral plays aggressive here. And Daned's already taken a bit of damage.
Teams need one more stage to claim
As they go aggressive again, Danid takes even more damage.
Both of our teams need one more stage to claim Lijiang.
And then as
once again,
as he backs off, Lulsic snipes him with a fire strike. Now, Danid's under the same amount of pressure really as Facilities is.
Lulsic falling so quickly is a bit of an issue.
Well, speaking of needing more, both of our teams.
And they got Discord Orb on Urki. Where's the Discord Orb from Angry Titans? I think it's on Numlocked.
Need one more stage to claim.
Oh no, it's on Danid, yeah. So both teams have put Discord Orb on the opposing Briggs, but it looks like they're trying to punish Danid for playing aggressive, which Danid does play aggressive, but I like how aggressive Danid plays. You just have to be careful not to get caught out.
Lijiang Tower once again.
Like, I mean, maybe you don't anticipate the fire strike coming through and wrecking you.
Just trying to get bullied.
There we go. A little bit of come up.
I have no idea formation. I've no idea.
For Danid, he ends up going down and Fat taking out Numlock. This is the fight that 80.
And once Danid goes down, they just play aggressive.
British Hurricane right now, of course, just making sure Haffy does get staggered for as long as possible, or maybe not. Obviously, he can contest. What am I thinking about? Fight that 81.
Our teams need one more stage to claim Lijiang Tower. Once again, Lulsic trying to get bullied.
There we go. A little bit of comeuppance for Danid. He ends up going
Yeah.
down and Fat taking out Numlock. This is the fight that 80 wanted. They're still trying to punish the
Yeah, if Haffy calls over the other side of the map, then I guess fire strikes are more likely to hit, but
staggered for as long as possible, or maybe
I don't think
not.
that's a
Obviously, he
big...
can contest. What am I thinking about?
I don't think that's usually a big deal.
Seems like a quick learning experience here from Angry Titans. They realized how aggressive British Hurricane were being, and they've quickly moved in to try and punish that instead of like, okay, Danid wants to come in, try and make Lulsic.
It is Haffy from TF2, yes.
Danid himself is honorable. 250 HP when that shield's not up doesn't last you very long at all, especially when you have a Discord Orb on you. Lulsic can swing. Look at Lulsic's ult charge. He's 30% ahead of Numlocked. If he hits a good fire strike here, he can close down this fight with an Earth Shatter.
Everybody's lining up for him as well. He's already got 80%. Yofi trying to do something rather cheeky and boot Lulsic.
Yofi's very far in.
So low. He had a Discord.
If he hits a good fire strike here, he can close down this fight with an Earth Shatter.
Everybody's lining up for him.
This is they kind of int here, British Hurricane. All right.
As well.
Yofi's super far in, and honestly, against the top team, they might just try and kill Yofi here. They do pressure to Danid and force him away, and then they overcommit onto trying to kill Lulsic, even after the rally's used, and they just get overwhelmed and killed.
He had a Discord Orb on him. Yofi actually helped Lulsic in that instance try and get the kill.
I think that's a
nice little pin onto the
fairly
side
classic
as well.
example
He
of
nets
just
himself
overextending.
an ultimate of his own.
They threw Haffy in super aggressive, Yofi in super aggressive, and Numlocked in to see if they could isolate Lulsic.
Exactly like British Hurricane were doing on Night Market.
And it's the same story again when it comes to the ground.
But I think this is also like a lot of... This is like European contenders to a T compared to a lot of the other regions. Is that they have a plan of how they want to engage and they just fucking go for it. Like they don't really trade spam for very long before just going straight into the other team. It's pretty high tempo.
Everybody's lining up for him as well. He's already got 80%.
There's not really much of a neutral game before a team makes a play.
But Numlock's so low. He had a Discord Orb on him. Yofi actually helped Lulsic in that instance try and get the kill.
There's a lot more poking and prodding in most games in OWL.
An ultimate of his own, although 10% away, not
and
too far. Bot is also going to go down.
Korean contenders as well.
Clean up the rest of British Hurricane, and they're going to be able to roll ults exactly like British Hurricane were doing on Night Market.
And it's the same story again when it comes to the Graviton.
Benchmob, thank you for the 5 months. Tier 1 sub for 5 months. Juicy. How you doing, dude? Wait a fucking tickety boo. What's happening there? Right, so British Hurricane are trying to come back into this. They have basically all ults are up for all teams at some point during the next 2 fights, apart from the rally. Like the only ult that's been used is Angry Titans rally. British Hurricane just haven't actually generated some of their ults yet. And this choke point can be very difficult to be able to get through. So forcing out ults here is important. What the fuck is that graph?
Spectral just coming in with I don't even need resources to survive. Aggressive on Lulsic. Yofi comes in, he demands.
So I think that must have been trying to get a solo grab on Suna. Suna's the only one that's forward. And I think he tries to grab the corner here, so it sucks him into it, and they're able to get that pick, or force the trans out, or whatever.
Comes in,
but it just misses.
What is that Graviton Surge, Jaws? I'm going to call shenanigans on that. Spectral just coming in with I don't even need this. I'm just going to throw this
They also
away,
just don't need to force the fight.
Yeah, Suna's got it online, of course. Happy has
So
the
that's
bomb.
obviously a huge mistake from Angry Titans.
He does and finds two. Nice little.
The hell what happened there? Oh, another Brig bash stun combo. So Numlocked got bashed. They knew that Suna knew that Urki was going for a bash there. He could see the positioning of Urki, wherever he is, fucking wherever, and bubbled him, but the bubble was slightly late, and so all he did was bubble a bashed Numlocked. Which, honestly, can sometimes block the shatter as well.
He does and finds
but it didn't this time.
Nice little flame strike actually to finish off Bok, but Suna ends up going down. 2 members dead for British Hurricane, and Angry Titans unleash the beats. Numlock hits the hammer to the ground, but he ends up going down as well as the strike actually to finish off Bok, but Suna... Yeah, Suna's got it online, of course. Happy has the bomb. Got to be rather careful now, a little bit more cautious unless Lucius lays down the hammer.
Alright, so nice bash shatter combo. Takes down Bok and Suna.
But Suna ends up going down.
Spectral dies, and for whatever reason, Fat decides to use Sound Barrier. I don't think Fat needs to use Sound Barrier here. I don't think Angry Titans need to at all. Hurricane have lost their 2 biggest damage dealers in the fight. Yeah, you've lost Spectral, but you're also in control of the point, and you have positioning advantage. I think that's a waste. And it wasn't like it was even forced. There was nobody that he was trying to save. There was nothing like that. So I think that's just poor play from Titans with that ult. They win the fight with it, but they didn't need to in order to win the fight.
And Virali in that last fight, they're not going to be available now, but they do have this mountain of ultimates. They've got both their major support ultimates. They've got a Graviton self-destruct combo, and they're only going to be able to answer it with a Transcendence.
Bubble's a little early from Suna, but he needs to be able to get that charge. Grav comes in, pretty nice. Bombs up in the air, it's already been transcended. Did they actually find a bash on that? Did Lucius get bashed? No. The hell happens here?
Burning up to 99 in a couple of seconds. The Graviton Surge gets launched in. Losish, the main recipient of it.
It drops behind his shield. That's pretty unlucky. So, as far as I'm aware, nothing actually happens to Lulsish there. It's just if you... It dips behind his shield. Like, I don't know whether you could tell there, but his shield was like this. And the bomb kind of dipped through his shield. So I think that was the reason that he died. He got bashed?
He comes Losish, the main recipient of it.
Did he? No, I don't think so.
The main recipient of it.
No, he dies before Danid goes for anything. Oh, look at Danid here. He doesn't get bashed. Here's Danid. Look at his outline. He's already dead. He's already dead and Danid's not doing anything. I think he gets bashed. There's no bash symbol. I don't think he gets bashed. It's possible that he would die like in the same frame that the bash came through, so sometimes you don't get the bash UI, but I don't think he gets bashed there. I think it's just a mistake from Lulsish.
Win one fight now. British Hurricane, they need to be perfect in order to claim this first map.
Angry Titans may have been routed, but
he was bashed like in the last frame. You can see it. All right, I'll go through it again. No, you're wrong.
He comes through. It's going to help the rest of his team survive for the time being.
I think the bash was already fucking used here. Like, look, isn't that him bashed? Pretty sure it is.
Fat also going to fall. AT only need to win one fight now. British Hurricane, they need to be perfect in order to claim this first map.
Angry Titans may have been routed, but the road.
All right, anyway.
Walk down, extracts a heavy toll, Jaws. 3 ultimates were expended there.
I never know whether to trust my chat or not. Sometimes they see things that I don't see on the HUD because I'm looking at the game. Sometimes they make shit up.
Pilot Diva was given the overshield, ensured, of course, that Numlock could continue to swing
okay,
into the Graviton.
So Hurricane kind of managed to clutch that after not playing particularly well in the previous couple of fights. Speed boost engage. Getting really aggro into the backlines, just actually inting in with the rally.
30% now for British Hurricanes. They continue to gain
Hurricane Shatter doesn't find anybody. A lot of damage onto the players from British Hurricane. The trance has been forced out just by pressure from Titans. So now this grab is free. But the counter grab is really nice. So you got a situation here where they go crazy aggro into the back, trying to pick these players off. It's a nice retreat from British Hurricane to be able to get back. Suna's only at 60% at this point. They go forwards. Haffy gets a bunch of pressure on him. They try and shatter based off it. And as they push forwards, they break barrier, but everybody here is super weak. Like, Haffy's been demacked? Is he about to get demacked? I'm not sure. But anyway, everyone's super weak. But Suna's managed to get up to 100% ult. So he's built 40% of his ult during this fight. So Bokken uses his trance in order to get them level in the fight, which is normally a terrible idea. But when the grav comes through from Spectral to get them all there, they're full health, and they counter grav onto the rest of the Angry Titans. So they get released from the grav, they get released from Spectral's grav first, and they can follow up on their own grav at the end. They actually don't follow up on anyone in the grav, they follow up on Lulsish, who happened to be aggressive because he was trying to follow up on their grav.
Lulsish Nurky end up going down though. AT will
once
again go for the reset, but British Hurricane, their capture percentage looking
decent identification that they were ahead, or not ahead, but had caught up to that ult battle and had an opportunity to use their trance.
Lulsish, instead of swinging at him, decides to go for the long pin, and this gives Suna enough time to perfectly time the barrier so that it would just dissipate upon the pin, give him 40 extra energy, save Numlock's life, and also
even if this grav gets multiple people, like even if that grav got a bunch of people, as long as you get the counter grav off, you're at least gonna make the fight even.
They both end up separating both teams.
So, it's not that it was a terrible grab from Spectral. Obviously, you want more people in the grab, but just the fact that you can counter grab is the big deal, I think. Titans are very aggressive. Bomb up in the air to try and peel. Haffy gets taken out though. Nice shadow as well. So Titans are crazy aggro. So this is that fight again. The only thing that Hurricane have is a self-destruct, which they're going to get in a couple of seconds. So they use armor pack at the beginning, then they use barrier, and they speed boost straight into him. They nicely back off when the bomb comes through, but AFOX is still caught out, has to trance. And then just as Hurricane are about to get double support ult and might be able to fight this again, he lands a fat shatter. There's a lot of pressure coming out of Angry Titans there.
Quite like Diva, who's in 3-3, which should show the same thing off, and that looks like exactly what Angry Titans are going to be rolling out here with. Both of our teams have had success in the 3-3 versus 3-3 matchup on Lijiang Tower, so we'll have to see if one's going to come out ahead here on King's Row.
Nice little bit of take there from Lulsish. Didn't want to give the charge over to Suna.
Alright, so let's take a look at this map. This map has a lot of neutral fights and good opportunities for engages. So again, Angry Titans are just very aggressive.
So he did flame strike in midair. Kind of like half channel it and then just
Yofi and Fat play around this angle a little bit. Lulsish takes bubble, tries to run past Numlocked, but Fat just ints and dies. And then Lulsish gets bashed. I feel like Angry Titan's style is just overwhelm the enemy with aggression, and if it fails, it fails. But they don't have personal bubble, and they're only just about to get armor pack available when they push.
Going a little bit too aggressive. They tried to wall ride and get a boop on, but unfortunately he's got booped into the ground. Lulsish channel it and then just.
Did he get booped in by Yofi?
They're going to run straight head on first.
He kind of is. I think he does. Even if he does boop, I think Fat was like Fat very much intends to be here.
They're going to run.
I think he gets booped at this point further in. But he's already dead by that point
Head
anyway.
on first into Numlocked. Foul going a little bit too aggressive though. Tried to wall ride and get a boop on, but unfortunately he's got booped into the ground.
It's pretty
quick reset though. Not too far away at the score.
it's pretty brainless compared to a lot of the AL teams.
You go in, you can get that boop, you can absolutely doom an enemy main tank, but at the same time, if you are...
They'll poke a little bit more, they'll try and set up angles for their Zen. They'll try and see if they can get an advantage in resources by poking.
Be melted down. You've only got 200 HP. Even if you get given that armor pack, that resource will not be available for the rest of your team now as well. You can see Yofi ready to come in and get that boop himself, but he's got much better positioning here. Going to be very hard to catch him out.
Yeah, unless a break just like whip shots in. Oh, that's extremely low. No, I'm not going to.
Okay, using the amp to heal. Oh, another enormous shatter. Okay, but this is going to be a pretty cool fight, I think. So they're looking to try and, when Angry Titans engage, Yofi's obviously looking for a boop to try and isolate somebody. Numlock goes forwards, a little too far forwards, and has to be peeled for. When the amp comes in, they decide to engage themselves with speed boost instead of with heals, obviously. Rally gets used for Danid to keep him alive, and even though the shatter comes through and they kill Numlocked, the rally just about keeps Danid alive, along with heals from Bokken and Yofi, and they attempt to clutch based on this grav.
Graviton Surge is going to get thrown in by Hurricane to salvage what they can at this point. Lolsh is falling pretty low, but he's got the rest of his team to back him up. And now Lolsh just devastating the backline.
It's possible because they're outputting a shit ton of damage onto everybody. Is Emil trying to body block there as well? Is he everything with his with his defense matrix? Yeah, I think so. But he still gets killed. Grav comes back with the trance, but they still kill Suna through it.
Excellent there is the Earth Shatter is going to take down Spectral. Can they get the kill?
I think they can.
Shatter is nice as well. But it's become incredibly messy because British Hurricane decided to clutch. And that because they decided to clutch with the Grav, that sets all of the other ults offset from each other. And it means that you have like teams, one team has a Grav and the other team doesn't have a Grav. One team has already used their rally, one team has already used their trance, they use the Earth Shatter, now the other team's replying with the Earth Shatter. It makes GOATs very chaotic when teams try and clutch. Another huge shatter. But things have kind of become very squiffy from here.
Spectral and a Transcendence is going to follow up to make sure British Hurricane.
So this is that fight again.
Excellent. There is the Earth Shatter. It's going to take down Spectral. Can they get the kill?
The Earth Shatter is good from Seb.
Angry Titans. They found the perfect start.
Then they back up and they have to fight against Rally and Trance. So they just bully Numlocked. Sound Barrier comes out. Lulsich gets bashed into the background and then shatters and finds 3.
Shatter from Lulsich. He's really want to make this first point worth it.
And Yofi does get that shield, will survive the pin, but Dan's caught in a corner, needs to try and get some help here. Not going to get any.
Almost okay, but not quite enough.
It is a fatty shatty. 3 fat shatters already from alternating Ryans. I don't feel like... Okay, so here's where Lulsich gets juggled into the back. Numlock's super weak. They use the sound barrier to keep him alive and keep the fight alive. Because why not? They're on the defense.
Have to back off, but a perfect beat from Yofi.
These guys back off somewhat anyway. Urki, Fox, and Fat. Lulsich is juggled into the back. Oh, it's a bash. I didn't realize. I was thinking, why isn't Numlocked up in his face trying to, trying to get value and pressure him so that he can't just throw out this shatter. But Numlocked gets bashed. So it's nice from Urki, really. Because I thought Urki had backed off massively. I thought Urki had gone backwards here with Avox. I thought he'd gone all the way back. But I think he gets booped in by Yofi. And so then he's like, well, fuck it, I'm in the back. Let's set up a bash shatter. Which is a lovely little
He's really want to make this first point
improvised play.
And Yofi does get that shield, will survive the pin, but Dan's caught in a corner, needs to try and get some help here. Not going to get any.
Almost okay, but not quite enough. Lotus just walked towards him, pressed down one. He ended up going down. Yofi's also going to fall.
And
but
Sooner had
Matthew
died,
still stalling
so
at
he's
the
not
point
there to be able to help.
In that time, Hurricane finally end up backing off. Angry Titans are going to be able to secure.
Okay, so considering that Numlock died at about... I mean, when did Numlock first die?
Boops are a double-edged with no that boop.
Just flicking between the two. Shadow's going to come out.
Considering they landed this fat shatter with 3 minutes on the clock,
and you up going
at least a couple of
it's pretty good that they managed to tick off another minute and a half.
By the high energy shenanigans of Sooner, but managed to stay as long as it did. He played a very effective and scary front line for Angry Titans to try and run into with all of that energy.
Because that first shatter was really a fight winner.
Hurricane got good spawn straws. They're very close to this arc.
Yeah.
Really good point of
Harsha looks very strange with grey hair. He looks like a different person. Well, it's like silver hair, I suppose. It's not grey, right? So Hurricane are going to hold forward here. They're about to get a Grav Bomb combo. They know that Angry Titans used both of their support ults in the previous fight. Bomb gets launched in, but Angry Titans don't really follow it up particularly well, but they're doing a good job at focusing Yofi. So Yofi went for a play up at the top there, and Spectral was making sure that he couldn't go for it, like lasering him down. So they've had to use their armor pack on Yofi at this point. Bubble's been used onto Numlocked because the armor pack isn't there, and both of the bubbles had already been traded. Armor pack had been used onto Yofi, so they don't have anything available to peel for Numlocked. So they try and Grav Bomb it to like win the fight, you know.
Bomb goes literally nowhere as Losish now pushing
but
forward.
It's a nice
Rocket
eat.
is also going to stall himself on the payload, but that eat and grab, that was the momentum stopper they were after.
And that is a why?
Oh dear.
That was a tragic fight for British Hurricane because they invested so many ultimates. They invested all three of their offensive playmakers. They used for Earth Shatter, they used for Graviton Surge, they used for Self-Destruct, and none of them could really get any purchase there thanks to some great mitigation. Emil eating up that grab possibly will have given Angry Titans this the next point as well, because Spectral now can use his own Graviton Surge and he's so far ahead of Sooner. But what you got to worry about...
They have shouts.
There we go.
That's what you have to be worried.
Will have given Angry Titans this the next point.
So Emil just ate Sooner's Grav.
Well.
Now Happy eats
can use his own
Spectrals.
Surge and he's so far ahead of Sooner. But what you got...
Okay. That wasn't anything special there. That was just Spectral yeeting a Grav straight into Havical's Matrix.
And they have shouts. There we go. That's what you have to be worried about, Harry. Another defense Matrix. Happy-Cool eating that one up, maybe halting the momentum of AT. They still got an Earth Shatter as they lay it down. Beat's going to come through as well, but Happy-Cool in the back line.
Angry Titans still play really aggressive. Spectral takes a shit ton of damage. He's basically dead by the time the barrier comes in. The barrier is... They've driven a wedge between these two halves of the team. So they push these guys back with Happy, Yofi, and Danid. And then they push these guys back with Numlocked and Bokken and Tuna. These guys got the, what do you call it, sound barrier on them. These three didn't. So these people loop around and then just focus Lulsish and Urki. Presumably Urki will die at some point. Maybe not actually, because he's got the rally.
And now Hurricane said you wait one, Willie 1-2, and stops Angry Titans in their tracks.
Yeah, you really wish you'd had that Transcendence about right now, right, George?
Yeah, oh yeah, I kind of wish we did. Yeah. They both have beat as well. That was the thing. You beat and then Transcendence a little bit later. Maybe you win, but Lulsish falling is disaster. Soonest has got another grab yet, Harry, but Angry Titans taking a bit of a reserved route there.
Yeah, the winning card here, of course, will be the Graviton Surge, but Emil's going to be hungry for that one. Has the
They're really making sure that they deny this position up there on the top left as well.
Since that last sort of fat-fingered attempt, British Hurricane looking pretty stacked on the defense as well. 4 ultimates ready to go. They have such a strong position around this corner. They're going to have to try and evict Numlocked. You can get a load of physical cover.
So a huge amount of ults available for British Hurricane here. They've basically got everything online. Angry Titans are about to get Grav Bomb, but Grav Bomb's going to be pretty difficult to to actually execute unless they take a neutral fight and force out resources at the beginning.
Any shield, but there it is for rotation from
Sometimes teams on the offense here try and trade. Okay. How did Yofi die? Yofi get caught in the graph?
Grabbed on Surge, gets thrown in straight onto Numlock. He goes low, but still has the shadow.
Where's Yofi? He must have just been in the middle of that. Why was he there?
Straight onto Numlock. He goes low, but still has the shadow.
I don't know why Yofi was in the grab. It's pretty bad if Lucio gets caught in a grab like that.
But Spectral still finds a kill. Self-destructs on top of Angry Titans. One ends up going down. Spectral
defensive self-destruct got dropped with an offensive self-destruct right in the middle of this grab bomb. But basically, if you decide to engage with your grav here, I think you're probably going to lose. In double grav bomb situations, the team that grabs first is normally the team that loses. Yofi says, I don't know either, sorry. Was he going for a boop? What, inside the grav? Your team knows that there's going to be a double grav situation. Your Lucio should just be staying out of it.
Spectral falling still doesn't mean the fight is over just yet. Daned using the rally to make sure British Hurricane a little bit more hardier in the face of danger. AT, they finally end up losing this one. Lulsish ends up going down. 2 grabs expended. Hurricane come out on top.
And I got a little bit mental, Jaws. Let's take stock of what is remaining. Time, Jaws. 1 minute and 10 seconds here for Angry Titans. Emil was forced to take the long walk off the long gantry into the Omnic Underground below in order to reset himself and regain that mech. He will have about 22% of the way towards his ultimate, but Numlocked here is so close to that Earth Shadow, but he knows he cannot quite match Lulsish yet. That means Lulsish can be so much more aggressive. He cannot allow Numlocked the opportunity to go for these swings and freely gain himself that ultimate. That's going to be a pretty fat
okay, Bokken takes down A-Fox.
You got to back off now.
That's a big pick. Look at British Hurricane. They're trying to punish AT for every step that they overstepped as they end up going back to their original point and their original spawn. Got a couple of ults online, but Spectral is so far away. 50%, to be fair, Sooner is as well. Equal kind of charge on the Earth Shatters. Numlock's going to be able to get this one, no problem. He's only 10%.
Something that I've noticed comparing Runaway to these European contenders teams as well is that the EU contenders teams seem to think more about the team as a whole and the ults that they want to use in fights and stuff like that. But I think the individual level of play, like the level of each individual player, not across the board, but generally is higher on Runaway than it is on these two teams. For example, when we were watching Gundam Jin play yesterday, the guy was fucking nutty. Like, really stood out in the game, his individual skill. Lee Jae-gon as well really stood out with like individual talent, playmaking ability. But these guys play more around the team setups and the team ults and stuff like that. The big mistakes that Runaway were making were more ult based, and going for plays that they probably shouldn't go for. It seems like British Hurricane have a better shot calling, maybe better team coordination, but I'm not 100% sold on that. I think it's pretty similar. But a big area in which you really notice watching Runaway, where you don't really notice watching these EU contenders teams, is that the individual level of skill is very high with the contenders' Korean teams. For example, the sleeps and the shots that Gundam Jin were hitting, the clutch boops that Lee Jae-gon was hitting to win them fights. It seems much more Rhine-centric in your EU contenders because both of the teams are playing at such a high tempo. You don't get as much poking and prodding for other people to make plays. Maybe that's the difference. Maybe it's stylistic. I don't know. I think on an individual level, a lot of the more a lot of the heroes that show it more seem more impressive in Contenders' career. Okay. So, final fight. Angry Titans are going to engage with Rally. British Hurricane have double support ultimate. Fox doesn't have his. Both teams are going to get a grab in the fight unless it just ends super quickly. But a lot of this is going to be about the shatter. Okay, so Lulsich was... Did it actually get cancelled? Oh, it did get cancelled. I thought he just got bashed and killed before he could do it. But Lulsich is going for this same play again, where he just tries to muscle his way. He just tries to speed boost his way past the enemy Rhine and then hit the shatter on the back line. But they're so ready for it, and they just bash him and kill him. And in some sense, it doesn't even matter that the ult got cancelled, because if he had been bashed before the shatter came down, British Hurricane's focus fire was good enough to kill him anyway, I think. But it's obviously even more clutch that Danid managed to cancel the shatter. But really, like, Danid is just... It doesn't so much matter that the shatter got cancelled. It's more that Danid knew that that was happening and was very much on point with bashing him as he got past. So now Samba is engaged. Numlock uses the opportunity just to shatter everybody. Easy peasy. Easy peasy. So Titans are abusing the mistakes. Oh no. Well, yeah, mistakes. I mean, they're abusing the very one-dimensional playstyle of Angry Titans, where they just try and run at you by being a bit smarter and shutting down the people that are going aggressive.
Hasn't failed him yet.
Both regions have to resort to abusing Brig, and therefore both are equally shit. Fonk. After watching these matches, which players do you think could perform in Owl at an average level or higher? Well, it's less about Owl and it's more about the teams. I was really assessing the quality of the teams. I think both Runaway and Hurricane are in the top half of Owl in terms of their level of performance. But I don't think that they are better than the top 3 teams in Owl. Definitely not.
Neither is British Hurricane.
For different reasons. Obviously, both teams have very different styles and strengths.
Running out on the Sombra too. Maybe they just ran out with this. They are sticking on it a little bit longer than you'd normally see.
I was hoping that I'd be able to come to some kind of firm opinion on which team I think is better. But I'm not sure I'm going to be able to.
From Contender's career, quite a few good Sombras there, and Happycall is a very notable DPS player. He used to play for Fnatic. Already he's all over Afox.
Look at this, Afox going low. He had the Discord orb on him as well for a brief moment. Lulsich ends up going down. This is
quite a few good Sombras there, and Happycall is a very notable DPS player. He used to play for Fnatic.
So they're continuing to play very aggressive even when they're playing with the Sombra.
Look at this, Afox going low. He had
and Lulsich hasn't backed up, and honestly, you can't really see what happened in the fight, but he's been completely overwhelmed. Did he get bashed or something? The hell happened to Lulsich? How did he get rolled so hard? Oh, he got bashed, yeah. Really nice from Daned again. Daned's getting a lot more work done than... Fuck me, what's the name of the Brig on Runaway? It's Hisu and Shui. I feel like Daned's getting more work done than Shui.
Still managed to wing out the tank battle in the front line. Lulsich falling is disaster for AT. They're going to have to back off.
It's also maybe more punishable because he just generally plays a little more aggressive, but I think it's I actually like how Daned plays. I think he's pretty fucking good Brig.
They're going to go for the re-engagement right head first into British Hurricane.
I really like how Haffy plays as well. I think Haffy had a bunch of times where he was playing DPS and it doesn't look that great, but I like the way that Hurricane play around him, taking a lot of off angles. Suna and Hisu look pretty similar. I think Suna looks slightly better. But I think the support line, apart from the terrible Transcendence usage from Gundam Jin and the weird ult usage from Runaway, where I think British Hurricane play better with their ultimates, like they play better with their offensive ultimates, especially. I think the support line is more skilled from Runaway.
They're looking tight, they're looking solid, and Angry Titans.
They're looking thick, they're looking tight, they're looking solid, yeah.
They've got the Graviton Surge, and maybe they can earn themselves an Earth Shatter off of it. Transcender's coming online soon as well, but Happycall
EMP?
Yeah. Uses it.
Like that as well. I mean, they're using the EMP when they're like right next to Angry Titans.
Support ults to follow up. Angry Titans just blown to smithereens as British Hurricane continue.
But also, no one's paying any attention to Happy.
A couple of meters away from gaining them a win on this map.
That could be it already. Sooner when he sees people approaching and hit them up.
Runaway are very good at being able to play against the Sombra. They were super good at pressuring out Sombras.
There's A-Fox, you can't touch.
You can't touch on the payload. It's done.
Very nice grab. Very nice grab.
Just Barker.
So they just slapped them on King's Row, actually. That was a slapping. That was them identifying the style of Angry Titans and just giving them the willy.
Very impressive resume for a player, but impressive resumes need to be...
Numlock got a raw deal. Yeah, I agree. I think it would be a real shame if Numlock... And also, I also think Zuppe as well. I recently said this in one of my subscriber Q&A videos, that I think Numlocked and Zuppe should both have another chance in OWL. The problem is, like, there are only a finite number of people that can be in OWL. So there's a lot more people that deserve an opportunity than there are spaces for. But I would like to see those guys play again.
Buffed up right now, British Hurricane. Going to be flexing their guns on the defense. It's 3-3 once again. Angry Titans coming out with the same thing. No one wants to take risks here, Jaws, because the stakes are too high. There's so much pride on the line here.
I think Winston Goats is better to defend with here than Ryan, but it's marginal on this patch. I think on the new patch, Winston Goats is definitely better to defend with.
Scary that
but,
there's still kind of a curse behind it. No one's had a complete, clean sweep of a season just yet. That's a very dangerous pick-off there. Haffy Cool going so low. If he gets demeked in that situation,
Haffy applies some pressure, gets bashed.
Nice rotation by Angry
They're going to rotate around.
Of the high ground,
Haffy's still requiring quite a lot of heals here, though, because he took a lot of damage. Harmony needs to go on Numlocked. Oh. That was a boot by Yofi, I think. Yeah. They go in, they drop onto them. Urki was kind of far forwards. Yofi's already behind him, comes behind. I think he boops him, but it just, they get isolated anyway. Danid's pretty deep in.
Main tank falling for British Hurricane's pretty disastrous, especially when we're on the defense.
But Hurricane just with better positioning in that fight, I think. Is Emil not dead?
And a
wow.
rally from Danid as well is going to make sure they stay alive for so long. AT actually backing up and splitting themselves off now as well.
It looked like Hurricane played that fight a lot better, but Numlock died. How did Numlock die? So there's Numlock to the back right. Bottom right. I don't really know. I think he just took a shit ton of damage from everybody as he backed up.
Main tank 4 going down, and a rally from Danid as well is going to make sure they stay alive for so long.
But they played that fight pretty well.
And splitting themselves off now as well.
This isn't playoffs. British Hurricane haven't played against anybody good in playoffs yet.
Danger zone. Spectral's going to go down. Fat's going to follow him.
Angry Titans played against Giganti, and that game was pretty decent. That game was very close, actually. It was a fun game to watch. But I think British Hurricane are the better of the three. I mean, hot take. I think the currently undefeated team that beat both of the other teams is the best. But when you look at them play, Angry Titans are pretty one-dimensional, but they are very tight and coordinated. Giganti are less one-dimensional, but also less tight and coordinated. Giganti can play more styles and maybe play a smarter game than Angry Titans do, but they don't have the teamwork, and they don't react as quickly as Titans. And you can see how effectively he shoved it because he's 5% away from a graviton surge. You can go for a potential Shoes Money Crew Pepe Hands. Yeah. Listen, Haffy, they beat Shoes. I can't even remember what the copy pasta is. They beat Shoes Money Crew. Experience coordination. Get back to me, your bad hunch. I can't remember what the rest of it is.
Yeah, they're going on point once more, almost getting the second tick. British Hurricane a little bit quicker this time around.
Nice block from Seb, kind of a yeeted grav. Also, she's got Discord. It's grav, but there's a bunch of people that got knocked out of the grav. Bomb is in the middle. Nicely placed grav. And was that a boot from Yofi?
Still trying to go for Numlocked. The Shadow does nothing, but the Graviton Surge definitely did. Self-destruct's going to get launched on top as well.
Yeah.
Nice
boot from Yofi. Manages to find Fat in the middle of it.
Still fighting as they've got a grab of their own. He gets sent in and actually lashes itself.
Counter grab. Yofi beats it.
Just save his life though. His shield not quite so
Daned's pretty
forced into a tight corner.
Very nice. Nice collapse from British Hurricane at the end of this. So they don't really have anybody to follow up on this, and Bucket already uses his trance. Why does Bucket use his trance? Maybe because he's worried about Sooner and Numlocked. Yeah. So he's worried about Sooner and Numlocked, but they both get booped out of this window at the same time as the Grav Bomb comes in. So it's actually really clutch from Yofi that he manages to boop Fat and Urki, but Urki's got his own shield, and kill Fat.
A nice boot does end Fat's life, but Angry Titans are still swinging. They're still fighting as they've got a grab of their own. He gets sent,
and then they're able to use the sound barrier themselves to make sure that they don't die in this Grav. And the Grav Bomb's kind of fucked from Emil too.
Save his life though. His shield not quite so lucky, but 81.
And then they just collapse on them at the back of the point.
And a tight corridor, free for Numlock to swing away, and they find yet another fight. And now AT, they may have claimed 2 ticks. Harry, his shoot down. His own for going to hit the floor.
No, Fat wasn't beating when he died. Fat had already used his beat. Fat used his beat, and that was what pressured Numlocked and Sooner out of the fight.
As Angry Titans still trying to go for Numlocked. The Shadow does nothing, but the Graviton Surge definitely did. Self-destruct's going to get launched.
So they traded beat for trance, and then they traded trance, and then they like forced trance with the Grav Bomb, and then they used beat to survive their own Grav, and then collapsed on them afterwards. But the big difference was that they managed to actually still manage to follow up on the Grav Bomb combo, even without their Rhine, because Yofi found a nice boop.
2 minutes and 30 seconds, Jaws, and a lot of ultimates in that previous fight as well. They invested basically everything that they had and lost.
Ah, that was it. Josh, respectfully, they defeated Shoes Money Crew. That's the one. That's the one.
Now going to be the closest to yet another ultimate. The same can be said of British Hurricane. So if Angry Titans here can just make their way to a point again, they can go for that sort of like, oh, I'm going to pressure you into contesting. You can't give away a tick again. You can't afford for disengage. You can't afford to pick your moment. You've got to run straight to us, and that's exactly what they're
doing. Quite a bit of poke on these guys. Nice bubble onto Numlocked, well timed. The bubbles from Sooner are better than the bubbles from Hisu, I think.
Very dangerous pick off onto Spectral. There's no
Afox has been caught out. Nice from Happy Cool.
I
think Titans are just basically walking to point over and over again, like just running the same play. And then they're spreading out as well and getting isolated. Not really appreciating the positional advantage of Hurricane. And then Hurricane have got a very good idea of who to focus and who's vulnerable.
50 seconds now remain. British Hurricane looking like they're going to hold on first. And British Hurricane, they're dividing and conquering.
Just pin him all the way down main.
They go for Spectral. Emil does have that meg, but will be executed before he can get it back. Of course, didn't want to feed back.
Yeah, that was another thing. Hisu's bubbles. Hisu's bubbles were sometimes really poor. Sooner's bubbles have been better. But also, I think bubbles are kind of easier when both teams are playing high tempo, because it becomes just simple. Like, whenever the two Rhines are fucking running at each other, bubble them. But when you play a bit more of a slower style, the bubbles make a huge difference.
Happy calling that assassination. And look at all these ultimates British Hurricane have ready to go. All 3 of the playmaking ultimates are available, and 20 seconds remain for Angry Titans. It's going to take an absolute miracle for them to cap this point.
They're so ready, British Hurricane. You can see it in their eyes. All tick marks. Numlock jumping onto the point. Don't want to give any more.
Rally is used from Angry Titans. Nice pin. Again, good bubble from Sooner. This is so clean. but it's allowed to be clean because Titans are just running the same strat over and over and over. So
they don't win it though. British
during this.
Afox might be the best Zen in terms of mechanics in EU.
25%. Cannot afford.
Bring it. He's not going to bring it out. Not that too much of a different defense here. You can imagine we're going to see Emil up on the background on the right hand side, and AT just got to make those rotations perfect. Remember what happened to British Hurricane on defense? They let a couple of ticks go right from under their nose.
Yeah, and it's because they wanted the optimal positioning to try and take that fight.
All right, so what are they going to do?
That top window, just being able to peek out using his charge shots to try and get those early picks.
Probably the best plan here is to what Angry Titans were doing was just rushing underneath and going to point. The best thing to do if you're playing direct Ryan v Ryan goats, I think, is to act as if you're going to point and then wait until the enemy team drops on you and then collapse onto them. So like you're acting as if you're just gonna rush all the way to point and they're gonna drop on you and kill you, and instead you're like sitting underneath and you're getting prepared for them to drop on you, and then you're just gonna fuck them up when they drop on you. You're like baiting them into dropping and then collapsing on them when they drop.
Right now, they are going to be looking down on British Hurricane.
That's how I like watching teams play. I think that's one of the most effective ways of playing this. Okay, so they're running a split play here. They've got 4 here, and then they've got Bucket and Danid the other way.
Space, no one can really hear you scream.
So Bucket and Danid are coming up this way with damage and a bash potential.
Gets pushed out here. It takes a little bit longer to actually get back to the rest of his team, and they punish him for it. But Loxy's just going to go down as well, and Emil was just left completely open. But sooner, exactly.
I'm not sure if I like or really understand that play.
Angry Titans, they need to be able to stabilize at this point. They managed to kill off Bok as well, one of the main damage dealers, and get a nice little stagger onto Happy Cool as well.
Good job there from Emil as well. Bouncing out the back, making sure no one's coming around the back. Numlock is going to open that door. It doesn't like the engagement will be taken here by British Hurricane.
I think the point is that if Bucket's with them over here, he doesn't really have a sight line on anyone. But if Bucket's at the bottom of the stairs, he has a sight line up the stairs, but you need Danid to be able to defend him. So when these guys push in aggressively, Bucket can discord people from behind because there's no shield in the way, and then he can do damage up the stairs. And if they try and fuck them up, you're going to kill them all. I think that's the theory behind it. But it does just kind of make your front line weaker. And they just focus Numlock and kill him. Because Danid wasn't able to get heals on him. Presumably Bucket wasn't either.
But sooner, exactly the same fates.
Bobber, thank you for the 3 months. Thank you for the 3 months. Imagine subbing to this massive Papega. EU goats are overrated as fucking. It's crazy you think the British Hurricanes can beat Runaway. Papega brain right here. I don't know whether British Hurricane could definitely beat Runaway. I'm not saying that they're definitely a better team, but I think it's definitely a question that should be asked. Are the EU teams better than the OWL teams? Sorry, not the OWL teams. The Korean Contenders teams. Because both of them are undefeated in their region, and people are just running off assumptions that Korea is better. So you have to ask these questions. So yeah, I think the pressure on Numlock is just too much coming through this doorway. When did Suna use his bubbles? Oh, he got pushed out. And that probably makes a big difference as well, honestly.
One of the main damage dealers, and get a nice little stagger onto Happy Cool as well.
Good job there from Emil as well, using a bunny blast.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen anything in these VODs that would imply that Runaway is way better, but I would say that the support line for Runaway is individually much more talented, actually. But the fact that Gangnam Jin likes to press Q whenever he rolls a dice and it hits the number 6 kind of negates that advantage. I would also say that Runaway were fantastic at playing against Sombra. And British Hurricane have played a bunch of compositions that were kind of not cheesy but a bit unconventional and didn't work so well for them. Wow, that's a... Okay, so the boop, the grab to peel, Rally tried to keep them alive, and because Angry Titans were not quite prepared for it, there's no great follow-up. Nice pin. Shadow was a bit optimistic, but nice fire strike as well. I think they should be fine to be able to win this fight, though. So that's like the... This is, roughly speaking, the play that I was talking about, where you bait as if you're going underneath. You're like, they're baiting as if they're just going to rush all the way to the point, and they're trying to get Angry Titans to drop on them and fight them. But instead, what they're doing is just kind of... And then they just stay here and they wait for these people to drop on them. Which I think is a smart way of playing this Ryan v Ryan. As soon as they get dropped on them, they curl around and they just focus whoever drops. I mean, normally you wouldn't want to yeet the Rhine 72 miles over to the east. But
He's going to receive a personal barrier, and actually
it works out in the end for them. Because the Grav gets used, but Lulsish is so far away, and Spectral's so far away, and they've still got all of their resources that they can survive even without a trance. And Aafox uses his trance, that kind of shit. How likely is it that Wolf watched EU Contenders? I think Wolf has watched at least the playoffs of EU Contenders. And I think he's probably watched a little bit of other stuff. He does watch Contenders, and he said that he's watched a bit of British Hurricane play. He's watched all of Korean Contenders.
And take the map as well. Someone's going to be able to touch potentially, but Emil is the only one there.
Lulsish will rejoin the Mez's fat sound barrier as well.
He's going to come in. Rally is going to come.
I think Wolf has actually watched all of Korean Contenders. Korean Contenders is like his baby. He really cares a lot about Korean Contenders. And he's the kind of guy that won't just watch it like casually. He'll actually watch it and be paying attention to it.
Onto the point. British Hurricane will claim Horizon and claim match point in the series. And that was of course.
Okay. So they just kind of demolished Titans on the defense there. Well, fuck me. Junkertown. I love it.
I can imagine. Hurricane holding so far up. It's going to be so hard for Spectral to get on top of the payload, which is exactly where he wants to.
Alright, so what are they up to here? So British Hurricane are going to hold close with Goats. Angry Titans are going to run this Bastion strat that's designed just to kind of put a shit ton of pressure on the British Hurricane. See, a bunch of teams in Owl actually run it with the Symmetra as well to hop from high ground to high ground so that they can't just avoid. You can't just sit in one place. But the major thing to keep in mind with these two compositions is whatever kind of comp Angry Titans run that has this same kind of theme to it, which is like use the Bastion to shred these people that are trying to block the cart. Most of the time, these kind of compositions have terrible cart pressure. So even if you just hide inside this house and come out onto the cart and then run back inside the house when you take too much damage, you can normally block the cart for a long time. Because the attacking team doesn't have a great way of being able to play the cart. And you can try and play line of sight quite a lot. But there's a lot of spam coming out from this composition. Like, a huge amount of spam.
Just kind of soloing in the skies. Fat's going to join him momentarily, and it's all about.
You're not expected to win here if you're British Hurricane. You're just expected to delay for as long as possible.
Well, that Baby Diva doing a little bit of work, but he's going to kill him off.
D-Max and D-Life, but still the payload isn't moving.
Normally, I think you would see Owl teams play a bit tighter than this and try and play inside this house and just keep blocking the payload. And there's no real need for British Hurricane to be playing outside here because nobody from Titans can play the point. I mean, who's going to play the point? If anyone does decide to go and touch the point, you just rush them and kill them and then straight back inside. So I think I've definitely seen teams coordinate this defense a lot better than this. But most of the time, teams aren't running double spam as well as the Bastion. If you just stay inside the house here, the Junkrat is going to do so much damage. Yeah, at some point you have to walk outside the house. But British Hurricane did just decide to go forwards immediately. But whatever. It's not really designed to win, it's just designed to take time off the point. A Titan's going to swap. I would expect Titans to swap their comp up a little here. Okay, they're not. They're going to stick with double spam. I think British Hurricane could go for a wholesale swap and try and play some dive or add some hit scan in. You could go for a big swap and try and play more of a divey comp. You could go for a smaller swap and try and integrate some hit scan into your Goats comp. But you could play like a... You wouldn't really play McCree Brig on this, but you could play a Widow.
The payload now, so Spectre in kind of a worse off position at this point. Well, not
so much. Worse position, being gunned down by the minigun, of course, and Urki free to rain down those rockets before being checked by Bocket. Tank form is available, so is the Valkyrie.
The shield's happy, so going to have to be
careful.
Nice sleep, though, straight past the shield. It was down, and now a sleeping tank ain't going to do nothing, but they're still contesting the payload. British Hurricane.
It's a nice contest from British Hurricane.
Tactical will end up losing his mech. Nice little bio-grenade from the Arna team.
How the hell did Yofi apply that much pressure to a Fire Mercy?
There's a lot of rally and a lot of armor now being built up for British Hurricane. And EMP comes
but
through.
Again, this is all
but still,
pretty fine.
I want to stress how much room British Hurricane are buying themselves. half the time bank of Angry Titans has already elapsed.
It has. AFOX going to be trying to do something here with the grenade.
I'll probably, yes, I'll play Sekiro today.
Bring himself over to safety.
As long as I finish this VOD.
Have ruled out some position on this point. Dan is not going to be able to last for long despite his
I'll finish this VOD in like,
what?
I've only got 10 minutes of this VOD left, so I'll probably finish in about 20 minutes, and then I'll play Sekiro after that.
By the off-tanks with that little bit of hit scan prowess, of course, both Diva and Zaya have hit scan capabilities, but at short range. And look at that trap there that's right under Urki, potentially trying to bait people in if that's not destroyed.
Yeah, I like the contenders casters as well. I think all of the contenders casters have a lot they could get better at, but that's a good thing, not a bad thing. If you've got a duo that are pretty good already, but also you can tell that there's a bunch of stuff that they can improve, that's a fucking great position to be in as a casting duo. Jaws and Leg Day, for example, have a shit ton of potential. I think they're going to get a lot better over the coming years. And they're already pretty good, don't get me wrong. I'm not shit talking them. I think they're already pretty good. I enjoy listening to them. But when I listen to them, there's a bunch of stuff that they don't do that they could do that would make them even better, and then that makes me excited because they could be a really good casting duo in the future.
British Hurricane are going to continue to hold. Bok is also very safe up on the high ground. Resurrection onto Spectral to bring him back into the fight, but Numlock quickly checking him.
Yeah, not going to be lasting very long at all. Can use the Primal Rage for a second leap, but still very a pocket there.
Spectral needs heads. He needs to click someone's head right now in order to make this.
I don't know about this switch to the Widow. Okay, let's pay more attention to this rather than the casting.
There's the bongo. Oh no, Sooner fell for the trap, walked straight into it. A big engage though from British Hurricane. Nice headshot by Spectral.
Because the Spectral is there for bait. Oh my god, nice shot.
It's going to be enough for him to survive.
Spectral's Widow is actually really good.
Going to come through as well from AFOX. Find the Mecha Happy Goal, but he's going to use himself.
Is it considered Spectral's best hero? I think it probably is, right? I don't know what people that watch more contenders than me think, but I would consider it Spectral's best hero.
Going to be lasting very long at all. Can use the Primal Rage for a second leap, but still very pocket there.
Spectral needs heads. He needs to click someone's head right now in order to make this fight worth it. AT now having to run back to spawn. There's no way Fat's going to escape alive, so he just donates himself to the ult bank of British Hurricane. Now there's only 60 seconds actually remaining.
I'll maybe talk about casters another time.
Only 4 people on the cart.
I'm not here to review the casting really. And also it's kind of strange because if I talk a lot about, like, I have tons of thoughts about casting. It's something I've thought about a huge amount over the course of the last 4 years. I have so many theories and things that I could say and things that I could analyze about the casters. The problem is I literally work with them, so it gets into a weird territory. Like if you not analyzing but like discussing, you know, people that you work with, it's not a very professional thing to do, I think.
They got the EMP. You could see Emil was setting up, but they have 30 seconds now remaining for them to make sure this payload touches that first point to extend their time back.
Like Future Armor every other season, that push was
we talk to each other about stuff.
Emil now ready to cancel out any ability.
It's just not something that's very easy to do publicly without it seeming strange.
It's going to be so hard to catch him. If you want to get the rest of British Hurricane, the nano boost is ready.
Although I'm sure people would find it very interesting. Nice nano timing. Oh, okay. Well, I don't think he was supposed to primal there.
He's going to visit the Australian outback. Urki's going to go down.
But they're going to be able to win this fight anyway.
He's just batting everybody around. AFOX is also dead. 18 now just scurry back to the point.
Well, they kind of destroyed this fight, British Hurricane. This defense was just too easy for them, honestly. Angry Titans weren't able to apply enough pressure. Maybe they should have tried to play double sniper instead of the spam. The spam didn't really get anything done. Their focus fire wasn't that great, and they just shut Spectral out of the fight. Like, maybe triple DPS would have been better, stuff like that. I mean, triple DPS is like not spam, but you have the Widow as bait, and then you have people that kill the people that are going on to them. I think Uber tends to VOD review himself though, right? He doesn't VOD review other people. That's when it gets weird, is like putting public opinions out there of your co-workers. That's not a good territory to get into. Oh, I really like the Pacific casters. Avril and Pixie, you mean? They're really cool people. people. They've been around in the scene for a long time. I'd really like for them to get some other opportunities. I think they could. People don't know them that much because not many people watch Pacific, but they're really cool guys. Very knowledgeable as well. Oh, he does VOD review from casters who request it, yeah. I mean, that's the only other way that you do it, right? Is that you talk about... you review people that want you to review them. I'd be perfectly happy to do that. I'd really enjoy doing that, actually. But the problem with that is that often it's people that aren't very good that request stuff, and then you end up fixing very basic errors instead of talking about the more interesting intricacies of it.
For the head-to-head was 3-1 in favor of British Hurricane all the way back in Season 3. Angry Titans doing something a little bit more different here. Oh, a bit more standard for Junkertown. Got Hog.
Most of the people who are reasonably good don't want to be told the things that they aren't good at, unfortunately. At least not in a public environment, because then it comes down to like their reputation as well. Even though it would be super useful for them to do it privately. Okay, so British Hurricane are going to be running with a quad DPS look, but with a Wrecking Ball.
British Hurricane going to back off from the cart now. Don't want to push it any further. Going to wait to be fully manned before they go in for their next attack. But look at how much shield pressure Angry Titans will have available. With a damage boost to Junkrat, the Orisa, Fusion Driver, and of course, Emil throwing out Scrap.
Daned's just getting pounded here, though.
Daned taking so much damage.
Yikes. A-Fog's going to claim a kill of his own as
They're
well.
getting destroyed.
And
now Angry Titans have got Tyre.
Yeah, he did wrap around the entirety of that small house. He's almost got himself a Riptide now. Angry Titans
it's very open to be playing this kind of composition, where you can just poke Daned from a distance and then still do a lot of damage to Numlock's shield.
Speaking of old banks, Jaws, look at Sooner in that ultimate percentage, only 34% for a minute in right now when he's had high energy.
Unlucky Endotricity, unlucky.
Angry Titans are being so cohesive in their form.
Why Hammond and not Hog here for the shield break? The Hog wouldn't really do that much. I mean, you're not trying to break the shield. This is a... Just more generally speaking as well, this is a classic thing that that I see a lot of people... I see a lot of people on Reddit or Twitter or just fans in general or players in game and stuff recommend certain switches that in theory kind of make sense but would ruin the entire composition. Like for example, if you have this comp or something and the enemy team, like say this was a Pharah instead. I mean, this is going to be a bad example, but whatever. You got to come up with some kind of example. So say this was a Pharah. You see a lot of people in comp games or on Reddit or whatever be like, oh, Daned should go Widowmaker at this point and try and kill him because Widow counters Pharah. And you get that kind of thing all the time where instead of considering the composition as in its entirety and what its purpose is, people focus in too much on one hero versus another hero. Like for example with the Roadhog, to use that example that you gave there, if this was a Roadhog, then now you are committing yourself to take it instead of deciding that you want to run over them, which is what this composition is generally going to do, where you're aiming to get Daned in a position where he's healthy enough to be able to slam onto them and find a pick where you run over either the Junkrat or Lolsish, maybe A-Fox, but he's normally going to be in too passive a position. Or maybe Daned can get behind and be able to distract Spectral at the same time as you go forwards into them, this kind of thing. But instead of the plan that includes everybody on this comp, if then you change Daned to a Hog for shield break, then you are stopping all the rest of these heroes being useful at what they're useful at, and instead they have to all shoot the shield against shield break from a Hog and a Junkrat onto a Rhine shield. So the Orisa comp is going to win that every time. Like the Orisa comp is actually good at shield management and spam. And if you make one adjustment to try and make yourself good at that thing, you're going to make the overall composition worse because you change what it's designed to do. So a lot of the time when you think about compositions and counter compositions, it comes down to what the comp as a whole's aim is, rather than what each individual hero is very good at. Oh, that's nice though.
They're going to continue.
So they're just trying to fucking throw Daned and Hafikool in there to displace their positioning and then run them over with these players on the floor. If they'd been sat there with a hog and they hadn't had Daned to be able to roll into them and disrupt them and actually run them over, then they'd have been sat super passive and they wouldn't have been able to win that battle in the end. So if you change just one hero, you might be slightly better at something, but you're in a lot of circumstances you're making the composition worse as a whole. Oh wow! Oh nice. Ooh. Okay. All right. Well, that was good.
Sooner ends up going down. British Hurricane now have to reconvene back on.
You can probably run the same strat again here though, and Spectral won't pop off. You know, like that was a clutch play, but there wasn't anything wrong with the plan. So Hurricane could run that again, and you know that's the kind of fight where you just brush it off and you're like, okay, well, Spectral clutch. Let's just go again. So Slam up on top, along with the bomb. The bomb's bought them a lot of position, but it didn't really find anybody. Okay, but then Numlock gets a pin onto Lulsish. Surely Spectral can't pop off again.
Spectral now has to go man mode on the rest of British Hurricane, but I don't
think
the plan
works.
They're all gone. British Hurricane
so yeah.
Into that golden box of victory, claim the 3-1 in the series and go undefeated.
Yeah, it's like people saying go Reaper to counter a Winston. Exactly. Yeah, it's that kind of shit. You see it all the time in ranked games where people are like, go Reaper, it counters Winston, and then you're stood there with a fucking Reaper in a dive comp or something, and you're like, well, I'm just useless. Because the Reaper is only going to counter the Winston if the Winston ints into you. And he's not going to.
Going into playoffs. 7-0.
Why are the finals best of 5? Why not? What would you rather they be? Best of 7? Best of 7 is very long. I think best of 5 is a good format for
It's a really good look for them. Spectral did have his moments popping off here, but unfortunately, it seems like British Hurricane just too over
for an Overwatch match.
Hard to just grind down. They would keep coming back.
Ooh, that's a nice little pick on Yofi. I mean, Yofi was doing a good job there, pressuring the Widow, but Spectral's going to hit shots like that, then okay. Okay.
The curse, though, is still there. No undefeated team has won a season just yet. Eagle Gaming.
Yeah, exactly. We have to get off Winston, they have Reaper, that kind of shit. I mean,
in the regular season,
best of 5 is called first to 3 in Overwatch because you can have draws. Okay, so this is the end of this. So, what have we learned? What have we learned here? I was going to write a little synopsis in here, but I don't think I am. I'm just going to create some fanfic instead. Okay. What can we take away from this? I think Runaway play more like the Vancouver Titans. Runaway invest a lot of resources into keeping Mag alive and play baiting around Mag. They play a slower style where it's more collapsy. They bait Mag, they collapse onto him. They also have a phenomenally talented backline, individually, although Gangnam Jin's transcendences are pretty poor. They also don't use aggressive ultimates very well. They're sound barriers when they play aggressive, they're EMPs when they play aggressive. Actually, they didn't really EMP, that was the other teams in Korean Contenders, but it's a trend with Korean Contenders. And their nano boosts are often used too early in the fight, so they don't get as much value out of it as they could. It's also difficult to properly assess Runaway because the other teams in Korean Contenders are so far below their level. They make a lot of real fundamental errors. And it seems like Korean Contenders at the moment is much more carried by individual skill than it is by a very good understanding of how to play GOATS comp. Contrasted to that, European Contenders, there are top 3 teams that are all similar level, although British Hurricane is the best of the 3. They aren't as individually talented, I think, though they're pretty decent, but they know how to play the compositions better, and they have more set strats, and they use their ultimates better in general. They play a higher tempo, they're much more aggressive, they like to use ults early in the fight, they force mistakes out of the other team. They're better at using aggressive ultimates, like the Soundbarrier, EMP, Nano Boosts. They get big value out of those because they play them correctly. British Hurricane tend to play around Hafikul having big off angles, and then push forward with the 3 of Numlocked, Daned, and normally Tsuna rotating aggression. They don't tend to play around their Zarya as much as their Rhine. It seems to be very Rhine-centric. In terms of which team is better than the other, I think it's very difficult to tell. I don't think there's clearly one team that's better. I think the individual talent on Runaway is perhaps better, other than... I think Danid might be a slightly better Brig than Shui, but takes more aggressive positions and is maybe more punishable, but I think he's pretty smart with the way that he normally does it. I think that Numlocked plays a very different style to Mag, so it's very hard to tell what would happen in that matchup. Mag is hyper aggro, but everyone plays around him. I think that Hafikul has more of an impact because they tend to play with him in very set positions and can collapse onto them when Hafi gets pressured. What else? And I think Hisu's bubbles are worse than Tsuna's and Sparker's as well. I think Hisu's bubbles were potentially a weak point. I think both of the teams are within the 4th to 10th place of Owl. If they were in Owl, I think both of the teams would be somewhere in that region. I think it's very difficult to be able to tell where in that region they would be. I think they're definitely not as good as the top teams in the league. I think it's pretty clear to me that they are not as good as Titans, Shock, and NYXL when they're playing well. I think it's very hard to tell from there whether they're... my gut feeling is that neither of the teams are as good as people like Gladiators, Dynasty, Spitfire. I think they'd probably sit underneath those. But it's difficult to say. Probably around the same level as Dallas. No, the Titans don't play slow. Sorry. No. I mean, well, when did I say that? Oh, no, sorry. I don't mean slow like Titans. I mean they play a baity style around their main tank like Titans. But Runaway play slower. Titans play very aggressive with their main tank. Runaway plays slower, but they still push Mag into aggressive positions. They may be the same level as Philly. Yeah, I'm not really sure. It's difficult to tell, but if I had to bet, then I'd bet that they're somewhere around that level. Probably about that level. Thank you, Sinomumi, for the Twitch Prime for 3 months. What else? I think that British Hurricane look a lot better when they're playing GOATs than when they're playing DPS compositions. I think their strengths are not in individual DPS comps. Like, their individual talent isn't their strength. And it's their coordination and their understanding of the meta and their ability to find win conditions and execute on them. What else? I think I think that the top 3 European contenders teams would probably beat most of the teams in contenders Korea. I think the gap between Runaway, even if Runaway are the best team in contenders, which is possible, having watched their games and having watched Hurricane as well, I think it's very difficult to tell who's the better team. They're very stylistically different, and their opponents are at different levels. Even if Runaway are the best team in Korean contenders, I think the gap between Runaway and the next best team is much larger than the gap between Hurricane and the next best team. So I think it seems fairly likely to me that Angry Titans and maybe Giganti would be able to beat the majority of teams in Korean contenders. If I had to go out on a limb, if I had to really say which team I thought would win a game between Runaway and British Hurricane, I think if British Hurricane stuck to playing their GOATS comps, I think it would probably be them. Very slight advantage to them. Based on the fact that I think Hisu's bubble timings are a bit lower, a bit worse. I think they don't play as aggressive or as high tempo. And I think that Gangnam Jin's trances were pretty bad. But individually, I think Lee Jae-gon and Gangnam Jin are much better. And I think that the European teams could just get totally suckered into trying to kill Mag. Because Europe is so much about killing the Rhine or overwhelming the Rhine, stylistically, Runaway might have a big advantage as well. Because a lot of their play is around baiting Mag. So I could definitely see a scenario where these teams faced off in the gauntlet later this year. And even though the European contenders teams were across the board better GOATS teams, they just were so not used to playing against a team like Runaway, where you can smash their Rhine, but they'll just sucker you into a bad position and then kill you. I could still see that being the case. I think that's still a very dangerous, even if you're a good GOATS team, to invest too much in the Rhine v Rhine and forget about the rest of it. Because British Hurricane do seem to very much play around the Rhine v Rhine. And make sure that, like, the whole point of having Hafi in these off angles often is to enable Numlock to win the Rhine v Rhine matchup. And so if they were doing that kind of shit against Runaway and putting all of their resources into Mag, then I think they would find it very easy to compromise their position to fuck themselves up. So just because I think that... And also, if Hurricane played a bunch of DPS comps, I think Runaway would maybe slap them around because they have higher individual skill. Even though I love the creativity of some of these DPS comps, I don't think that Hurricane look great when they play them. They lose a lot of coordination when they move on to them. Diman Trevino, thank you for the tier 1 sub. Oh yeah, it's literally not possible to predict meta changes. And the Gauntlet, I'm sure, will be in a new meta. Now, as for Runaway being the best team in the world, that's, I think, a laughable position. But I do think that they are a very good team. Whatever. What else? Yeah. I guess the next step is to look at Mayhem Academy and Fusion Uni. If both of these teams played 50 times, who would come out on top? How the fuck am I supposed to know? I don't know. I just told you I think it might be British Hurricane, but I don't know whether Runaway are better at being able to adapt. Historically, Runaway have had excellent ability to adapt over the course of their franchise. Or like over the course of the team's history, but it was with a different group of players. So, who knows? Who knows? So, yeah. I'm not sure, though. When I watched both teams, I noticed a lot of things that were worse than I thought when I first watched. It wasn't like I looked at both teams and was more impressed than I was when I just casually watched. I was less impressed when I was VOD reviewing than when I casually watched. I thought both teams were better than they actually are, I think. I think it's quite easy to overrate unbeaten teams because you don't realize the mistakes they make that they don't get punished on, and you don't realize their opponents making a shit ton of mistakes. But I don't know. We might also see Runaway are playing against Element Mystic soon, and then they play the playoffs, and British Hurricane play, the finals coming up, and then there's the showdowns as well. At the end of the showdowns, we should have a much better idea of what the situation actually is. I mean, maybe some team shows a weakness in their play. Maybe on the new patch, Runaway look a lot better because they're able to play around their Winston a bit more. I don't know. So we'll see. At the moment, I wouldn't really be confident saying either way. I kind of hoped that I would be able to come to a more solid conclusion than this, but both of the teams have got very different strengths, I think. I think the British Hurricane are a tighter, cleaner team than Runaway, but I'm not sure that they have necessarily more coordination than Runaway. They're cleaner with their ult usage, and they're tighter in terms of always having a plan and executing on it well. But the loose, baity style that Runaway play requires a lot of coordination to pull off. So I think Runaway are still a team with a lot of good teamwork. They just play a bit of a messy style.